Welcome to Macroeconomics, Econ 220 here at DVC. The purpose of the videos is to help guide you through the more difficult, maybe the more challenging parts of the material that you're going to be responsible for. You will have about 15 different lectures. These are going to be short lectures between 15 and 20 minutes each, and therefore it will comprise about 4 hours worth of lectures for the whole semester. It is a complement to the rest of the material and of course your textbook as well as discussions online, as well as homeworks, research, etc. is going to comprise the whole class for this semester. Let's start with a definition of economics. Economics is a social science, and it deals with how to efficiently use a country's resources. Basically what we're saying, we would like to be able to produce as much as possible with the resources that we have. And economics is split between micro and macro. Econ 220 is macro, which looks at the economy overall, the big picture of the economy. We will be looking at the problem of unemployment. We will be looking at economic growth, the GDP. We will be talking about inflation, national debt, trade deficit. So these are problems that face the whole economy from a big perspective, macro. Microeconomics, on the other hand, is going to be looking at the economy from the standpoint of one unit, like one firm, one individual consumer, rather than all consumers together, which would have been your macro approach. Overall, we could say that macroeconomics is going to dwell on growth, on economic growth. And economic growth means that we are producing more goods and services than we did before. We're going to be looking at the speed with which we would like the economy to grow. Basically, between 2 and 4%. This is for the U.S. economy. For a developed economy, we have many economies today, economies that are growing very fast, catching up. For instance, China has double-digit growth, and that would be over 10%. But for us, we would like to see about 2 to 4%. How are we going to measure economic growth? We will measure this by changes in the GDP, or the dollar value of all final goods and services produced in 1 year. Why is it important to have economic growth? Well, for starters, as the economy grows, we are producing more, therefore we are employing more people. And as a result, this is going to create jobs. So the economy has to grow at a particular speed, over 2%, in order for us to be able to create jobs for those people who are entering the labor force. The other thing that is important about economic growth is that it is also going to increase or improve your standard of living. Producing more means we will have more to share. As a result, the standard of living and the way we measure how well off people are based on the number of goods and services that they are able to consume, that is going to be another positive effect from economic growth. Another one is a question of stability, and you could even look at stability worldwide. If we are able to improve economies in other countries, we are able to create jobs in other countries, then that in itself is going to help people concentrate on something positive rather than something that would be more destructive, and that would be a war, for instance, or disruption in the global market in general. Now, we said that we would like the economy to grow about 2 to 4%. And we do not want the economy to grow too fast because that would create inflation. Inflation is one more problem that we face, and that would be an increase in the price level, a general increase in the price level. How come that will happen? Well, because if we grow too fast, then we are not able to adjust all the resources, and if we have a shortage of resources, then as a result, we are going to have an increase in the cost of those resources. Let's say that the IT is growing very fast, unexpectedly fast, and we are running out of engineers in that field. Then what will happen to the salaries and wages of those engineers? They're going to be going up because there are fewer of them than the marketplace would like to have. As a result, you are going to see a problem of inflation. Now, if the economy grows too slowly, then we would also have a problem of unemployment. So unemployment, if the economy is not growing fast enough and therefore is not creating enough jobs for people who are entering the labor force. Now, how are we going to influence GDP? How are we going to influence economic growth? Well, there are two ways whereby we will influence it, and that would be through fiscal and monetary policy. As you will see later on, this is in the hands of two different branches of the economy, and hopefully with the same goal, and that would be to have steady economic growth. So let's first look at fiscal policy. Fiscal policy refers to the use of government spending and taxes. So you will influence the amount of production by either spending more as the government or taxing more. Obviously, if you would like the economy to grow faster, then you will be spending more, and at the same time, your taxes are going to be going down because you would like people to have more money so as to spend more. Now, if this is the case, then what is going to be the end result of that? Well, we're going to end up with a deficit. And a federal deficit means that the government is spending more money than it is receiving. Indeed, in our economy right now, our deficit is in the billions of dollars. Our deficit is around $400 billion. That means we are bringing in as tax revenue $400 billion less than we are spending, and that represents the deficit for one particular year. It's a little bit like if you look at the analogy of you spending money and earning. How much have you earned? That's like the revenue from taxation. And how much are you spending? This is your government expenditures. So your deficits are in the billions of dollars, and when we add them up, we come up with the national debt. The national debt is therefore the accumulation of all the different deficits since the beginning of U.S. history. We are almost at a $10 trillion deficit. Actually, it's $10 trillion national debt, which is the accumulation of all the past deficits. That would be 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, a million. Another 3, that's 10 billion, and another 3, that's $10 trillion. Well, actually, that's 1 trillion, so one more zero, and that would be $10 trillion, or the size of the national debt. So how is it that the government gets this money? Remember, well, got all this money. This is right now we're talking about the deficit in the billions. Where does the government get the money that they are spending beyond what they have collected from taxes? That money comes from bonds. And what are bonds? Is the government giving you a piece of paper saying, I will be repaying you this amount. So, and a bond is really an IOU. And you are going to get your money back, but in the meantime, you're also going to be getting interest on that money. Now, it makes a difference whether that money is borrowed from local residents or is borrowed from foreigners. If it is borrowed from local residents, then the interest will be paid to people in the United States, and they then will be spending it at the shopping center, giving you maybe a nice gift. So that would be if it is spent by residents. A certain portion, less than 20% of the whole national debt, the whole $10 trillion, is in the hands of foreigners. Why would we let foreigners own some of our bonds? Well, if we don't have enough U.S. residents and corporations willing to buy those bonds and therefore lend the government money, then we will turn to other residents of other countries like Germany. They invest a lot in the U.S. The Japanese, and right now also the Chinese government is buying a lot of U.S. bonds. So what's the difference? Well, if you are a German citizen and you have borrowed the U.S. government money by buying a bond, then the interest that is paid on that bond will be sent to you in Germany, and you will be spending that money in Germany. Therefore, the creation of jobs, the creation of output will not be in the U.S., will be in the environment of a different country. So that would be fiscal policy, how you will try and impact the GDP. We were talking about stimulating the economy or making it grow, whereby we would increase spending and reduce taxes. So what would we do if the economy is growing too fast and we would like to slow it down? Then we would do just the opposite. We would reduce spending on roads, on schools, on after-school programs, on bombs, on tanks. And what we would do is increase taxes, because we would like to take some of that money away so that people have less to spend, and that will slow the economy down with the purpose of bringing prices down. So the first way that we were going to influence GDP was through fiscal, and the second one is going to be through monetary policy. Monetary policy is the change in the amount of money available in the economy, and it is in the hands of the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve Bank is the central bank for the U.S., and they will therefore impact interest rates. They will have an influence on interest rates, and by increasing or reducing interest rates, that will either speed up the economy or slow it down. So what do you think we should do to interest rates if the economy is very slow, if we have a recession, if not enough people are buying? Should we increase interest rates or reduce them? Well, since a lot of the money that will be used for spending is borrowed, then we would like to reduce interest rates. And as we reduce interest rates, then people borrow more, they buy new homes, they start new businesses, and as a result, the economy increases, improves, and the GDP grows. So here you have two ways of influencing GDP, fiscal policy and monetary policy, and that will be the main focus for this particular class. We will also have to look at the global economy, because today our economies are no longer separated, isolated. We are all linked together. And we are linked together, you could look at that as a very positive sign, because growth in one country will mean that this country is going to be consuming not only the goods that they have produced at home, but also goods that they are importing and that have been produced in another country. where more jobs would have been created. So if you're looking at the global economy, think of the interrelationship between countries based on exports and imports. Now this, as I just mentioned, is also going to be affecting the business cycle, or the growth or the slowdown of the economy, which is really what we talk about when we talk about the business cycle. How much is the GDP growing? That's an expansion. And how is it contracting, slowing down? People are losing their jobs, and that's going into a recession. So the business cycle right now is really a worldwide business cycle, because as we grow, we import more, which means that the other countries are producing more, which means that they are creating more jobs. And they then are able to import from us, which will also increase our own exports. So we are all tied together, and very often we are going to be relying on certain countries for certain products. You're all aware of the reliance of the United States on the Middle East for oil. You also know that China is a very large manufacturing factory for the world. 20% of everything manufactured in China is really for the United States. Just recently, yesterday, there was information about Walmart ordering fewer goods from the Chinese manufacturers. Now, they were not happy about that, because that means that they will now have to look for other producers, maybe in other countries, who would want to have their stuff produced in their factories. Otherwise, they will have to close down. So this is how we are all interrelated. We also specialize because it is sometimes easier to produce only those goods that we are very good at, and let other countries who are better at producing other goods do or produce the other goods, and we will be importing them. For instance, if labor is very expensive in the United States, then a handmade item is going to be so expensive that it will be prohibitive. So you're better off having workers in India or in China produce them where the wage per hour is so much lower. And therefore, we will be able to import that, and that will bring down our own prices. Outsourcing is another very integral part of the global economy. Outsourcing has been considered as a very negative thing for the U.S. economy in the past, but now more and more we realize that specialization worldwide is really the best way to deal with production. So outsourcing simply means that goods or services are not going to be produced by that particular company or that particular country. They will be produced in other countries. Outsourcing has been prevalent for a long, long time. One of the first or the more interesting uses of outsourcing was in the IT industry. Since U.S. engineers were paid such high salaries, then it would have been so much easier for programs to be written by people in countries where the cost of living is lower, and therefore wages are also lower. So if you were making $100 in a country where you are spending $5 for rent or $10 for rent, it's a very reasonable salary, as opposed to $100 in the United States, where the cost of living, everything that you're buying, is so much more expensive. So outsourcing has its advantages, and it also has its disadvantages. The main problem that we are looking at when it comes to outsourcing is jobs. And we feel that jobs are going to be lost through outsourcing, because people in other countries are going to be producing what could have been produced in the United States. Well, we need to distinguish here between short-run and long run. In the short run, yes, indeed, some jobs are going to be lost, but then the workers that were producing those goods may have to be retrained and moved to a different industry where we are better at producing, more competitive at producing. The other problem is that as outsourcing increases, then production in those countries increases, and there's going to be more pollution, and also there's going to be a greater demand for raw materials, especially for oil. One of the reasons why the price of oil is going up so high right now is because of the manufacturers in China as well as in India expanding very fast and demanding more oil to produce all those goods. So that, again, would be one of the negatives. Now, there are many advantages to outsourcing. The first one would be the price or the cost of production. Prices are going to be coming down because, as we said, different cost of living will allow for different wages in the different countries. And also, as we import more of those products, there is going to be competition among producers within the United States. And that is going to be also very helpful in bringing prices down, quality up, and more technological innovation overall. Now, in the long run, just like in the short run, we said we were going to lose jobs. But in the long run, those jobs are going to come back because as the economies of the countries where we are right now producing, where we are hiring more people to produce products for the American market, then their incomes go up, and they will be able to use those incomes to buy more from the United States. Now, some of you may not believe this, but if you look at statistical data, you will see that as more was outsourced to India, the demand for our exports to India grew. In other words, as Indian workers earned higher wages, they were able to demand more of products made in the United States, and therefore jobs here would also be increasing. So it's a win-win situation. This is what we are planning to do throughout this semester. We will be using models in terms of graphs. We will be using tables, and we will try and prove mathematically how these changes are accentuated, how they are magnified, and how we can calculate the speed with which the economy is going to be growing. So remember, macroeconomics is about growth. And we will try and modify the growth, slow it down if it is too fast because it would give us inflation, by either fiscal or monetary policy. When we want to slow it down, we would reduce government spending and increase taxes, while monetary policy would increase interest rates to slow down the economy. And we would do just the opposite if we would like the economy to grow faster, and that's usually when we have a situation of unemployment. I hope you'll enjoy those videos, and I will strongly encourage you to ask questions and post those on the website, on the discussion board, and hopefully a lot of discussions will result from that. Thank you.